That's a fact. Few men know this. Very wise advice from a 92-year-old elderly woman. Have you ever wondered why some women choose to engage in deeply intimate acts with their partners, such as intimate closeness, and what it truly signifies about their relationship? Is it simply about connection, or does it reveal something far more profound? In this video, we'll dive into the wisdom of a 92-year-old woman who shares powerful insights on how these intimate moments can strengthen emotional and physical bonds, build trust, and enhance mutual satisfaction. Most men think they know what turns a woman on, but few understand the deeper emotional meaning behind her longing for closeness. Stay with us until the end, because what you're about to learn will change the way you see intimacy forever. You'll discover the real reason women engage in intimate closeness and how it reflects their emotional connection. The biggest mistake men make is that it kills intimacy without even realizing it. How to create a relationship where she wants to be close to you without pressure or obligation. Partner, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I encourage you to click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. Your support means a lot, so if you find value in this video, please give it a thumbs up to help spread our message. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on today's topic. If you enjoy the content, please comment number 1 below. If it doesn't resonate with you, leave a 0. Your feedback is crucial as it helps me create better videos that align with your interests. Now, let's get started. The psychology of female intimacy. Why she truly desires you. Women's intimacy is deeply tied to emotional connection, not just presence and connection. For a woman, intimacy isn't just about physical connection, it's about emotional safety and trust. That's why intimate closeness, when willingly given, is one of the strongest expressions of deep emotional connection. Many men believe attraction is about looks or performance, but science shows it's about how a woman feels in your presence. If she feels emotionally secure, appreciated, and deeply connected, she'll naturally desire more intimacy. But if she feels ignored, criticized, or emotionally distant, her desire will fade, no matter how much she loves you. Example: why some women lose interest in intimacy even if they love their partner. Picture this. A couple has been together for decades. At the beginning, there was emotional depth, excitement, and effortless affection. But over time, something changed. She became less affectionate, less responsive, and intimacy became rare. The man was confused. She used to enjoy being close to me. What happened? He assumed it was age or hormones, but in reality, it was emotional disconnection. Many women don't talk about it openly, but they feel it deeply. The emotional build-up behind every act of emotional and physical connection. When she feels emotionally seen, desired, and appreciated, she'll naturally want to express that through intimacy. But if she feels unappreciated or disconnected, it won't matter how attractive or successful you are. She won't feel that same emotional pull. And this is where many men unknowingly push their partner away. The silent mistake that pushes women away. Most men unknowingly stop making their partner feel special. This kills intimacy. The biggest mistake men make, thinking that love, once won, will take care of itself. Many men believe that once they've built a life with someone, they no longer need to put in effort. But that's exactly what causes intimacy to fade. At the start of a relationship, men naturally make their partner feel seen, heard, and cherished, and they listen attentively, plan thoughtful surprises, and express their love openly. But over time, these small gestures fade away, and the emotional gap starts growing. And here's the thing. Women don't fall out of love suddenly. It happens gradually. When a woman stops feeling special, she starts pulling away emotionally. And once the emotional connection weakens, emotional and physical connection follows. Most men don't even realize this is happening until it's too late. They think she just isn't interested in closeness anymore, when in reality, she's not feeling emotionally connected. Example: a real-life story of a couple who lost their emotional connection and how they restored it. I once spoke to a man who had been married for over 30 years. He told me, "I don't know what happened. We used to be so close, and now it feels like we're just roommates." When I asked him about the last time he made his wife feel truly special, he paused. He couldn't remember, not because he didn't love her, but because life got in the way and he assumed their love was strong enough to last without effort. The good news? This can be reversed. When a man starts making his partner feel cherished again, she responds emotionally and physically. The 92-year-old woman's secret to everlasting passion. The wisdom of experience. How one small shift in mindset can reignite intimacy. She told me, a woman gives her heart and body fully when she feels cherished, protected, and emotionally secure. This one mindset shift separates the men who maintain emotional depth for decades from those who watch it fade. The truth is, attraction isn't about trying harder. It's about creating the right emotional environment for connection to deepen. Most men believe that if they could just look younger, get in better shape, or perform better in bed, their partner would suddenly be more emotionally connected. But here's what no one tells you. It's not about any of that. Women respond to how they feel in the relationship. When she feels valued, respected, and emotionally connected, she will naturally want to be close to you. Example, how older men can rekindle intimacy without chasing youth or changing who they are. I once met a man in his late 60s who told me, "My wife and I have the strongest closeness we've ever had, and it has nothing to do with my age or physical shape. It's because I finally understand what makes her feel loved." And that is exactly what we're going to talk about next. The simple actions you can take today to strengthen your emotional connection and bring intimacy back into your relationship. Small, daily actions rebuild emotional and physical connection. If you want to see your partner light up again, start doing these 3 things today. These habits will change how she looks at you, how she touches you, and how she responds to your presence. When a woman feels emotionally connected, her emotional closeness grows without effort. A woman's heart and body are deeply linked. She doesn't just wake up one day and stop wanting intimacy. Something changes internally first. And the good news, that connection can be reignited. If you've ever wished she would look at you the way she did in the beginning, if you've ever felt like the spark is gone, or if you've been waiting for her to seek connection more often, these actions will make all the difference. So let's break it down into 3 powerful, easy-to-implement habits that will make her feel emotionally safe and deeply desired. Example. Tactical, easy-to-implement actions that make a woman feel emotionally safe and desired. Speak to her heart, not just her ears. Most men underestimate the power of words. The way you speak to her, what you say, how you say it, can either make her feel cherished or invisible. If she feels emotionally unseen, she will emotionally withdraw. But if she feels deeply understood, her body will respond effortlessly. Try this. Instead of saying, "You look nice," say, "I love the way your smile lights up the room." Instead of, "Thanks for making dinner," say, "I really appreciate the love and effort you put into making this. It makes me feel so taken care of." A woman craves emotional depth in a relationship. She wants to feel like you notice the little things about her. When she feels seen, she feels safe. And when she feels safe, intimacy flows naturally. Touch her without expecting more. Many men unknowingly make their affection feel expected. They only initiate gentle affection when they want something more. But women can feel the difference between a loving touch and a touch with expectation. Start touching her in ways that don't lead to closeness. A soft kiss on her forehead, holding her hand while watching TV, placing your hand on the small of her back as you walk by. These little gestures tell her, "I long to be close to you for more than just physical connection. I cherish you." When a woman feels adored in the small moments, she will crave connection in the bigger moments. If she starts pulling away physically, chances are she's feeling emotionally disconnected. This is how you rebuild that bridge. Show up consistently in the small things. Women don't fall in love with grand gestures. They fall in love with the daily proof that they are cherished. Flowers and fancy dinners are nice, but what she truly remembers are the little things. The way you refill her coffee before she asks, the way you check in on her when she seems stressed, the way you remember the stories she tells you. A woman's emotional connection is like a bank account. Every small act of care deposits trust and security into that account. And when that account is full, she naturally wants to give back in every way, including intimately. These three habits, intentional words, non-touch with expectation, and consistent presence, will transform the way your partner sees you. She won't just love you, she will crave closeness with you. Not because she has to, but because she deeply desires to. And that leads us to the final key, the missing link that makes some relationships feel effortless while others struggle. Why some relationships feel effortless. The best relationships aren't built on effort, but on understanding. Some men try everything, grand gestures, expensive gifts, sweet words, and still feel like their partner is drifting away. Others seem to do less, yet their relationship is filled with intimacy and connection. What's the difference? It's not about doing more, it's about doing what truly matters. When a woman feels emotionally connected, attraction happens effortlessly. It's not about being better. It's about understanding what truly makes her feel close to you. The secret isn't in grand gestures or words. It's in making her feel deeply understood. Example, a story of how a small change in communication transformed a couple's intimacy overnight. Take Mark and Lisa. Mark was a good husband. He worked hard, provided for his family, and always told Lisa he loved her. But something was missing. Lisa seemed distant, less affectionate and uninterested in intimacy. Mark was frustrated. I do everything for her. Why does she seem so disconnected? One night, instead of trying to fix things, Mark did something different. He listened. Instead of offering solutions or brushing off Lisa's concerns, he simply said, "Tell me what's on your mind, I really want to understand." And for the first time in a long time, Lisa opened up. She wasn't upset about any one thing. She just felt unheard, like her thoughts and emotions didn't matter as much anymore. That small shift, choosing to listen and truly understand, instead of trying to fix or defend, changed everything. Lisa felt emotionally connected again. She felt safe, appreciated, and deeply loved. And within days, their intimacy reignited, not because Mark tried harder, but because he finally made her feel understood. The truth about lasting attraction, Manny. Men assume that keeping a woman attracted is about big romantic gestures or keeping up an exciting lifestyle. But here's the truth. Women don't fall in love with the things you do. They fall in love with how you make them feel. If she feels emotionally distant, no amount of money, dates, or compliments will change that. But if she feels emotionally safe, understood, and valued, she will naturally crave closeness with you. What you can do right now. If you want to create effortless attraction, start with this one question. Do you feel truly heard and understood in our relationship? Then just listen. Don't fix, don't argue, just be present. The moment she feels deeply heard, she will begin to reconnect emotionally. And from that, emotional and physical connection will follow, naturally, effortlessly, and emotionally connectedly. This is the missing link most men never realize. It's not about working harder, it's about working smarter. And now that you know this secret, the only question left is, will you use it? Drop a comment below. What's one thing you can do today to make your partner feel truly understood? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this video helped you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that will transform your relationship. We've uncovered a powerful truth today. Attraction isn't about grand gestures, looking younger, or trying to impress her with expensive gifts. It's about something far deeper. It's about how you make her feel. A woman doesn't crave connection just because of presence and connection. She craves it when she feels emotionally safe, valued, and deeply long for connection. Think about it. The men who have the strongest, most emotionally connected relationships aren't necessarily the best-looking, the wealthiest, or the most charming. They are the men who understand how to create emotional security, men who make their partners feel deeply connected. That's the real secret. So here's the final thought I want you to take with you. If you want deeper intimacy, start by making her feel truly seen. Listen to her. Appreciate her. Show her that she matters in ways that go beyond words, because when she feels emotionally connected, she will naturally long to be close to you, not out of obligation, but out of genuine longing. That's what creates natural closeness. Now I want to hear from you. What's one small thing you can do today to improve your relationship? Drop a comment below. I read every response, and your thoughts matter. And if this video helped you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful relationship insights that will transform your love life. See you in the next one. He doesn't say much, he doesn't bring flowers, he doesn't whisper sweet nothings in public. And yet when he sits beside her, her heart rests. No tension, no fear, no need to prove herself. Some men don't need to say, "I love you," every day, because their presence already says it, and louder than words ever could. They speak in the silence, in the way they don't interrupt, in the way they stay when things get uncomfortable, in the way they hold space, not her body but her emotions. This video is about those men who've learned that real intimacy isn't about touching skin, it's about touching something far deeper, her sense of being safe, and that kind of touch, it lingers, it heals, and she feels it instantly. She had experienced touch before, but not the kind that made her feel safe. Only the kind that felt like a transaction, a hand reaching for hers, not out of love but to settle an argument, an embrace before asking for something, a kiss delivered not because he felt it, but because he knew she needed it more than he did. Over time, even affection began to feel hollow. Then one day she met a man who did something different. He didn't rush to close the space between them. He didn't lean in with a goal. He just sat beside her, quiet, still, fully there. He didn't fix her feelings. He didn't fill the silence with advice. He just witnessed her, with soft eyes and no agenda. "It was the first time I felt touched," she said, "without being touched at all." Because sometimes what a woman over 50 needs isn't your hands, it's your heart, unshielded, your attention, undivided, your energy, anchored to the present moment. To sit with her in stillness, to look at her like nothing else matters, to let her feel, "He's not trying to fix me, he's just not leaving." That too is touch, and it speaks louder than skin ever could. A younger man often touches because he wants something, to guide, to impress, to ignite a spark. But a mature man, he touches because he understands something. He reaches for her hand, not to lead her somewhere, but to say, "You don't have to walk through this alone." He moves a chair gently closer, not as a move, but as a message. "This space next to you is where I'd rather be." And sometimes he doesn't touch at all. He just looks and holds that gaze a little longer after she finishes speaking, not to make her uncomfortable, but to show her, "I'm still here. I heard you, and you're not invisible to me." It's not about gesture, it's about meaning. And men who've lived enough years and know that meaning is what women carry long after the moment has passed. She doesn't need grand romance. She needs small truths. She needs to feel chosen, without being pursued, safe, without being shielded, touched, without being touched for a reason. Because to her, the most intimate connection isn't when he reaches for her body. It's when he reaches for her experience and simply says, "I see you right here as you are, and I want to stay." "I once loved a man in his 40s, she said, her voice steady but soft. He was handsome, charming. He knew all the right things to say and all the right moments to touch, but everything with him felt fast. Fast to fall, fast to touch, fast to disappear. It always felt like I was being rushed through something I wasn't ready for," she continued. "Like intimacy was a performance we had to deliver, instead of something we could gently grow into." Then she met someone else, a man 67. No fancy lines, no big declarations. They went for a walk, their first one. 2 hours together, only 7 sentences spoken, but every moment felt full. He walked half a step behind her, not because he was slow, but because he wanted to let her lead. He waited at every curb. He let her go first up the stairs, and when she said, "I'm a little tired," he didn't suggest a remedy, didn't ask for explanation. He simply stopped, pulled out a bottle of water, and handed it to her, without a word. In that moment, she said, I felt deeply loved, not because he fixed me, but because he didn't ask me to prove anything. That's the kind of touch women remember, not the ones that excite the body, but the ones that hold space for the soul. By the time she's over 50, she doesn't crave collision. She craves connection, not more hands, more presence. Because real touch, the kind that lingers, has nothing to do with skin and everything. To do with energy. It's the way he holds her gaze when she's trying to say something hard, without rushing her, without fixing it, just staying with her in the discomfort. It's the gentle nod when she finishes a sentence that cost her a piece of her courage to say. A signal that says, I heard you, all of it, and I'm still here. It's the quiet tilt of his head when she turns away to hide the tears, not to question her emotions, but to witness them. Gently. These are not moves. They're moments. Small shifts in body and breath that speak directly to her nervous system. You're safe. And the truth is, those moments often arrive before any embrace, before any kiss, and yet they go deeper than either, because for her, what touches her most isn't what lands on her body, but what honors her, vulnerability. And that, dear friends, is what a mature man learns. Touch is not something you do, it's something you offer. And when it's real, she'll feel it long before you ever lay a hand on her. You don't need to touch her body to touch her soul. In fact, the most intimate gestures often require no contact at all, just awareness, just intention. Hold eye. Contact without judgment. Let her speak her truth and don't look away when it gets raw. Don't scan her face to assess her mood. Just see her, as she is, as she's trying to be. Listen, without interrupting, not just waiting for your turn to talk, but truly receiving her words, her tone, her silence. Move closer without invading. Respect her space, but let your presence signal, I'm here if you want me closer. Compliment her presence, not just her appearance. Tell her what it feels like when she walks into a room, how things feel warmer, calmer, truer. Remind her that she doesn't have to be put together to be radiant. Hold her hand, not to lead her somewhere, but to anchor her. To say, I'm not letting go, not because I want to take you anywhere, but because I want you to know you're not alone. Because in the end, real intimacy is not built with hands. It's built with attention, with reverence, with the kind of quiet devotion that says, you are safe with me, even in silence. Especially in silence. She doesn't need you to hold her tighter. She needs to feel like she can breathe in your presence. Because at this stage of life, intimacy isn't measured by how often you touch her body, but by how deeply you hold her heart. Maybe she's been touched before, but not really felt. Maybe she's been in relationships full of physical closeness, but starving for emotional presence. And maybe all she needs now is a man who doesn't rush to fix her, impress her, or change her, just one who stays, who listens, who honors her without needing to explain why. So if you're that man or becoming him, remember this: the most powerful form of intimacy isn't what you do. It's how you make her feel when you do nothing at all. Have you ever experienced a moment of deep connection without a single touch? Share your story in the comments. Your words might remind someone that love, real love, doesn't need noise to be felt. And if this video made something inside you soften, hit subscribe. We are building a place where presence is power and wisdom is welcome. What mature men know about when she pulls away? She used to laugh more. She used to text first. She used to reach for your hand without hesitation. But lately she's been quieter, more distant, pulling back little by little. And you wonder, did I do something wrong? Is she losing interest? But what most men don't realize is this: when a woman pulls away, especially a woman who's lived, loved, and been hurt, it's not always because she's done. Sometimes it's because she's scared of starting again. She's asking herself, am I safe to love this deeply again? Or will it cost me more than I can handle? And mature men, they don't panic. They don't chase. They don't withdraw. They understand. They know that when she takes a step back, it's not rejection. It's a question. One that doesn't need an answer but a steady presence. She's not pulling away because she's cold. She's pulling away because things are starting to feel real. And for a woman over 50 who's lived through heartbreak, disappointment, betrayal, real doesn't always feel safe. When she begins to care, when your presence starts touching places she thought were long closed, she doesn't feel excitement like she did at 20. She feels fear. What if I trust again? Can't it end like the last time? What if I fall and there's no one there to catch me? Her distance isn't a sign of detachment. It's a test of safety. Not because she's playing games, but because her heart has scars, not bandages. And when her emotions become too real, too raw, she does the only thing that feels safe in the moment. She takes a step back, not to punish you, not to manipulate, but to breathe, to listen to herself, to see if this time her softness won't cost her everything. So before you react, it's a pause and ask yourself, am I strong enough to stand still while she checks if love can be safe again? Because sometimes her retreat isn't the end. It's the beginning of her seeing if you're the kind of man who will stay when she can't explain why she's pulling away. When she pulls away, most younger men do the exact thing that makes her pull further. They panic. They flood her. Phone with messages. Are you okay? Did I do something wrong? Why are you being distant? They demand clarity, certainty, reassurance, all at once. They want answers she's not ready to give, and in trying to hold on tighter, they end up pushing her away. Some get jealous. Some accuse her of playing games. Some try to control, tracking her behavior, overanalyzing her tone, searching for signs she's losing interest. And then there are those who take it personally and walk away. They assume, if she really cared, she wouldn't be like this. And so they leave, not realizing they just abandoned someone who was testing if she could trust again. Because here's the truth. When a woman retreats to protect herself and you respond by pressing in too hard or disappearing too fast, you confirm her worst fear. Men don't stay when it gets hard. You break something that was slowly healing. You shake the ground beneath a connection that was trying to take root. And what she needed most wasn't pressure. It was patience. What she craved wasn't explanation. It was space, and if you can't give her that, you might lose a woman who was quietly hoping this time would be different. A mature man doesn't chase, he doesn't beg, he doesn't send 10 texts trying to pull her back, but he also doesn't walk away. He doesn't punish her with silence. He doesn't say, well, if she's pulling back, I'm done. Thomas, he stays, not with pressure, not with panic, but with presence. He lets her know gently and clearly, I can feel you pulling away. I'm not going to push. I won't demand. I won't disappear. I'm still here, and I'll still be here when you're ready. He understands that real connection can't be forced. It has to be felt. And for a woman who's been through pain, sometimes the deepest kind of safety comes from a man who's steady, even when she isn't. This kind of patience isn't passive. It's powerful. It doesn't come from fear of losing her. It comes from confidence in himself. He doesn't need to control the pace. He just needs her to know, you don't have to earn my consistency. That kind of emotional strength, to hold space without grasping, to remain open without needing immediate return, is what makes a mature man so rare. Because he's not trying to possess her. He's giving her the most valuable thing a wounded heart needs, a reason to come back on her own. John was 64 when he met her. She was elegant, intelligent, and kind, but behind her smile he sensed something fragile, a history, a scar. She had been deeply betrayed in the past, and while she wanted to trust again, some part of her still flinched when love got too close. At first, things between them were warm, easy, full of laughter. But then she began to retreat. No more goodnight calls, no more spontaneous texts, no more gentle touches across the table. Friends told John, she's not serious. Walk away while you can. But he didn't. He knew enough, and had lived enough to recognize fear when he saw it, and he chose patience over pride. Once a week he sent her the same quiet message. I'm still here. No pressure, no expectations, just so you know I haven't disappeared. No questions, no guilt, no chasing, just presence, and for 8 weeks she didn't reply. Until one evening, out of nowhere, she showed up at his door. Eyes filled with tears. "You're the first man," she said softly, "who didn't walk away when I pulled back." And in that moment, John didn't need a grand gesture. He just opened the door a little wider and let her come in. Because sometimes the most powerful proof of love is not in what you say, but in what you're still willing to be when she's not ready to come closer. Don't rush to fix it, don't chase, and don't disappear. Instead, ask yourself a different set of questions. What is she afraid of right now? Not on the surface, but underneath. Is she afraid of trusting too fast? Of being seen too deeply? Of giving too much and then losing herself again? Have I created a space where she feels safe being fully herself, not just when she's happy and affectionate, but when she's quiet, moody, uncertain, and vulnerable? Do I have the strength to stay, without trying to control the outcome? To be present without pushing, to hold space without demanding clarity, to love without needing a timeline, because loving a woman who's been hurt isn't about proving how much you want her. It's about showing her with quiet, steady presence that she never has to earn your patience, that she can take her time, that she can breathe, that she can retreat and still find you standing there, calm, open, unshaken. You don't win her back by pulling. You bring her back by being a place she knows she can return to. When a woman has been broken before, she doesn't need grand gestures. She needs a man who knows how to stand still and say, "You're safe to come home whenever you're ready." Ending. And gentle. Kitar, when she pulls away, don't move faster, don't speak louder. And please don't try to prove your worth, just be there. Not as a rescuer, not as a fixer, but as a presence. The truth is, she may not even know why she's pulling back. All she knows is that something inside her is saying, pause, check, breathe. And the last thing she needs in that moment is pressure. What she's really asking at without words is this: are you safe enough for me to come back to slowly? Will you still be there if I take my time? Can I be fully myself, even in retreat? And the man who can answer those questions without speaking, without forcing, without running away, that man becomes unforgettable. So if you're watching this and you've been here before, either as the man who stayed or the man who didn't, understand until it was too late. You're not alone and you're not broken. You're just learning what real connection requires. If this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear your story. Leave a comment below. And if you'd like to walk with us through more of these moments, subscribe to the channel. We're building a space where wisdom matters more than noise, where presence is power, and love is no longer a chase, but a quiet invitation to return. What mature men know about loving a woman fully clothed? She didn't know she could feel that loved, without being touched. She didn't expect that a man could hold her so fully, without ever laying a hand on her skin. He saw her, not the way the world used to, not as a figure to chase or a body to undress, but as a story, a soul, a presence. It was the way he lingered in the silence after she spoke, the way his eyes softened when she wore her loose, faded sweater, the way he reached for her hand in the middle of a grocery aisle, not because he wanted anything, but because he wanted her, exactly as she was. That's the difference. Some men undress you with urgency. But a mature man? He lets your layers stay on and still makes you feel more naked, more known, more beautiful than you ever did in lace. That's the kind of love that changes you. The kind that says, I don't need you to reveal your body to earn my attention. You've already revealed your soul, and that's what I'm here for. She's been touched before, many times, by lovers who praised her figure, by partners who pulled her close when the timing felt right. But few ever saw her. Not really. She remembers being told she was beautiful, but only when she was dressed up. Only when the light hit her just right. Only when she was giving, glowing, desirable, and slowly she began to wonder. What happens to a woman when she's no longer trying to be admired? When the curves soften? When the makeup doesn't come? On every morning when she no longer wants to be pursued, but to be understood? She's not alone in this. Many women over 50 carry this quiet ache, the memory of being close to someone, yet feeling completely alone inside. They were kissed without being known, held without being heard, desired without ever being understood. And after enough of those moments, you start to pull back, not out of fear, but out of wisdom, because you learn. Affection without presence isn't love. Attention without understanding isn't safety. So, when a man comes along who isn't in a rush, who doesn't need her to be hot to stay close, who sees her in sweatpants and still leans in like she's poetry, that kind of love feels almost foreign, but it's also the kind that feels like home, because real love, the kind that matures with age, doesn't start in the bedroom. It starts in the way you look at her when she thinks no one's watching, and in that moment, she finally feels seen, not just her beauty, but her being. A younger man might make her feel attractive, but a mature man, he makes her feel safe. And for a woman who's lived through decades of being watched, judged, and expected to perform, safety feels more seductive than charm ever did. The mature man doesn't rush to touch her. He doesn't reach for her just because the moment feels convenient. He doesn't press for affection to ease his own insecurity. Instead, he waits. He listens. He respects the pauses, not as problems, but as sacred space. When he looks at her, it's not with expectation. It's with reverence. He doesn't compliment the makeup. He sees the light in her eyes before the eyeliner. He doesn't love her hair because it's styled. He smooths it gently when it's still undone from sleep. He doesn't grab her, hand out of habit at night. He reaches for it on a quiet Tuesday morning, just because it's hers. She doesn't feel like she has to stay sexy to be wanted. She just has to be herself. And that is liberating. Because for the first time in years, she realizes she doesn't have to work to keep his love. She doesn't have to shrink to stay desirable. She doesn't have to sparkle to be held. The mature man doesn't need her to be anyone but who she is, and tired, radiant, quiet, full. He finds beauty in all of it, and in that kind of presence she exhales. Because she's no longer performing, she's being, and he is still choosing. Her Linda was 61 when she met him. He was 71, gentle, quiet, and carried the kind of stillness that came from having lived long enough to stop rushing love. They spent time together, often in the small ways most people overlook, reading in the same room, sharing meals without, always talking, long walks without destinations. And through it all, he never once reached for more than she offered. 6 months passed. No pressure, no pushing, just presence. One evening, they were sitting on her porch. She had on her loose sweater, her hair up, face bare from a long day. He turned to her and asked softly, "When you wear your loosest clothes, when you don't do your hair, don't wear makeup, do you still believe you're worth being desired?" She said she didn't answer. She cried, because no one had ever asked her that. Not like that. Not without agenda. She'd spent most of her adult life learning how to be wanted, how to attract, how to please, how to stay interesting. But here was a man who wanted her exactly outside of all that, who wasn't drawn to what she could present, but to who she was when she finally put the performance down. He asked again, even softer, "Could I love you, even when you're not trying to make me want you?" That question broke something in her and built something new at the same time. It was the first time she realized maybe love could feel like this, unhurried, uncostumed, and completely enough. Loving her while she's fully dressed isn't about restraint, it's about reverence. The mature man knows that intimacy isn't always physical. Sometimes it's in the smallest acknowledgments, the kind that speak to the soul, not the skin. He notices what others overlook, the softness in her voice when she whispers good night, the quiet elegance in the way she pours tea, the gentle control in her hands, even when her heart feels undone, and he honors those details like they're treasures. When he brushes her shoulder lightly as he walks by, it's not by accident. It's a quiet message. I feel you. You matter. When he leans his forehead against hers, there's no pressure, no need for escalation, just presence, a silent way of saying, "You're still beautiful," in a way that doesn't need proving. And when she asks, half laughing, half vulnerable, Do you ever think I'm getting old? He doesn't rush to reassure. He doesn't deny the years. Instead, he meets her where she is and says, I see the years in you and I find them beautiful. Not because you look younger than you are, but because every line, every softening, tells a story I want to keep reading. To her, that kind of response isn't flattery, it's safety, it's depth, because she doesn't need to be chased anymore. She needs to be cherished, and the man who can hold her fully clothed, with his words, his attention, his stillness, that man offers her something rare. Love that doesn't demand, but sees and stays. He was 58 when he finally understood. Not in theory, but in practice. After years of confusing desire with connection, closeness with love, touch with trust, I used to think, he said quietly, that if a woman let me close, it meant she loved me. And if I could hold her body, then I had her heart. But over time, after the relationships that flared fast and faded faster, after the nights that left him lonelier by morning, he began to see what he'd missed. It's not about whether she lets you in, he said. It's about whether she wants to, not from pressure, but from peace. He remembered one moment in particular, a woman he'd grown to care deeply for. They were alone. The night was quiet. And he could feel the invitation, the openness, but something in her eyes asked a deeper question. Can you hold me without needing more? And in that moment, he chose to stay still, to let presence be enough, to say with his silence, You're safe. There's no test to pass, no part of you I'm rushing. It changed everything because he realized real love isn't measured by how close you can get. It's revealed by how much space you're willing to hold without needing to fill it. And now he says, I don't stop because I don't want her. I stop because I do. And I want her to feel that is before anything else. That's the wisdom that time teaches, that sometimes the most loving thing a man can do is pause, stay, and let her heart unfold in safety, not urgency. Mature man doesn't wait for her to undress to find her beautiful. He doesn't need a candlelit room or a whispered yes to feel connected. He doesn't chase moments of passion just to prove he's desired. He loves her, even in the quiet. Especially in the quiet, when she's layered in blankets, when her body is tired, when her spirit feels tender and unguarded, he stays. And in that staying, he offers something no rush of romance ever could. Reassurance, belonging, a home inside. Another person's presence, because when a woman over 50 feels safe to just be, without performance, without pressure, she begins to bloom in ways youth never allowed her to. That's the love she trusts now. Not the one that needs her to dazzle, but the one that notices her, fully clothed, fully real, fully human, and says, you don't have to be anything more than this. I'm already here. If you've ever loved someone like that, if you've ever paused, not out of restraint, but out of reverence, leave a quiet comment below. I chose to see her, not just want her. And if you're a woman watching this who has longed for that kind of gaze, who is tired of being looked at but not truly seen, feel free to write, I want to be loved, even when I'm not trying to be. Because here, in this space, we believe love isn't earned by effort, but deepened by presence. And if that speaks to you, you're in the right place. We're not here to teach love, we're here to remember it together. What mature men know about the silence between words, he didn't rush to speak, didn't scramble to fill the pause with reassurance, jokes, or noise. He just sat there, steady, present, calm, and she exhaled, because for the first time in a long time she realized she didn't have to carry the conversation to be worth staying for. He didn't need her to sparkle. He didn't need her to be on. He just needed her, as she was. There was a softness in his silence, not distance, not disinterest, but an unspoken invitation. You don't have to impress me. Just be here. And that's when she felt most loved. Not in the words, but in the space between them, where she didn't have to perform, where presence spoke louder than promises, where silence, finally, felt safe. When you're young, love often lives in declarations. I miss you. I can't stop thinking about you. Say it back. Words become the proof of care, of longing, of love. But with time, something shifts. Because when you've lived long enough, you realize the deepest parts of love can't always be said out loud. They have to be felt, and sometimes they live in silence. A mature man knows this. He's spoken all the words before. He's promised forever. He's whispered sweet nothings in the dark. But now he understands. Real love doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be present. He sits across from her at the end of a long day, watching her stir her tea, not saying a word. And yet, she feels it, in the way his eyes soften when they meet hers, in the quiet nod when she sighs, even if she doesn't explain why, in the way he holds space, not with pressure, but with patience. There's a kind of love that doesn't ask for constant confirmation. It simply shows up as day after day, even in silence, and when she feels that, when she knows she's still held, even when nothing is said, she begins to relax in ways she never could when words were all that held it together. Because love, after a certain age, is less about what you say and more about how you stay, especially when there's nothing left to prove. By the time a woman reaches 50, silence isn't just silence anymore. It's layered. It holds memories. It carries weight. She's spent years navigating conversations where she had to be the glue, keeping things light, keeping things flowing, smiling when she was tired, talking when all she wanted was stillness. She knows what it's like to be misunderstood in her quiet, to be asked what's wrong every time she took a breath, to feel like her silence made people uncomfortable, as if her worth was tied to how well she could keep a conversation alive. And over time, that becomes exhausting. So now, she craves something far more rare, someone who doesn't need her to perform presence with words, someone who doesn't ask her to cheer up, speak up, or open up, unless she wants to, just a man who can sit beside her on a porch in a car, across a kitchen table, and not flinch when the room grows quiet. Because when silence is no longer something to fix, but something to share, that's when it becomes sacred. It's not empty. It's full of trust, of acceptance, of something deeper than conversation. And if he can sit in that space with her, not awkward, not needing to entertain, but simply with her, she'll know. This is different. This is safe. This is someone who doesn't need me to sparkle to be worth staying for. That's when the real intimacy begins, the kind that doesn't need music, because the quiet already sounds like home. Daniel was 63 when it happened. He and the woman he was seeing decided to take a walk in the park. No plans, no expectations, just fresh air and each other's company. They found a bench, sat down, and for 45 minutes, they didn't say a word. People passed by. Some glanced their way, probably thinking they must be bored or maybe they've run out of things to talk about. But Daniel, he remembers that afternoon as the moment he fell deeper in love than he thought possible. She wasn't performing, he said quietly. She wasn't trying to impress me with stories or jokes or insights. She just sat there and still soft, peaceful, breathing, being, occasionally turning to smile at me, not because she had something to say, but just to share the moment. And it hit him. If a woman can sit in silence with you and feel no pressure to entertain, no fear that the stillness will push you away, then she trusts you in a way that words can't explain. Because so many women have learned to fill the space, to keep the peace, to avoid the pause, but she didn't. She leaned into it, and he stayed, and that, to Daniel, was more intimate than any touch, more real than any confession, more beautiful than any poem. It wasn't just silence, it was presence, and in that space his love had room to breathe. The truest moments often happen when no one's trying to impress, when no one's performing, posturing, or filling every silence with sound. A mature man understands this. He doesn't fear the quiet, he respects it. At dinner, when she's quiet, maybe lost in thought, maybe just tired, he doesn't ask what's wrong. He doesn't rush to lighten the mood or stir up small talk just to feel useful. He simply stays present. at ease, unbothered by the stillness, because he knows that some of the most sacred parts of connection happen not when we speak, but when we feel safe enough not to. He doesn't push for vulnerability on demand. He doesn't need deep conversations every night to feel close. He doesn't treat every moment together like a test to see if the chemistry is still alive. He's learned that presence is often more intimate than performance, so he gives her room to breathe, to feel her feelings or not, to talk or not, to just be. And through it all he stays unhurried, unshaken, not needing her to prove anything, just letting her know with every breath. You can speak, or you can be silent. Either way, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. That kind of steadiness. It says more than 1,000 conversations ever could, because for a woman who spent years having to keep the energy up, being allowed to simply exist in someone's presence once without pressure feels like love. Real love. Real intimacy isn't always found in the doing. It's found in the being. A quiet walk without earbuds, just footsteps and shared air, sitting side by side with tea in hand, no TV in the background, no conversation to keep things interesting, just two hearts resting in each other's. Nearness, a hand placed gently over hers, not to initiate something but to simply say, I'm here. Reading on the same couch, different pages, different thoughts, but a light touch on her shoulder that says more than any story ever could. These aren't grand gestures. They're not Instagram-worthy. They won't be written into poems or movies, but they are the very heartbeat of lasting connection, because at this stage of life she doesn't need entertainment. She needs presence, not the kind that tries to fill every gap with talk, but the kind that makes silence feel full, not empty. And he, the man who's lived long enough to understand, he knows that just being there, without expectation, without distraction, without needing the moment to go somewhere, is what makes her feel most safe. The greatest closeness isn't about the things we do together. It's in being able to share a moment where nothing needs to be said, nothing needs to happen, and still feel like everything is right. That kind of connection doesn't just happen. It's built, patiently, quietly, and above all, together. Top. Of form, bottom of form, you don't have to be a man of many words. You don't have to be charming, clever, or endlessly expressive. Sometimes, what she needs most is your quiet. Not the silence that feels like distance, but the kind that feels like rest. A silence where she doesn't have to keep the energy up. Where she doesn't have to make conversation just to prove the connection is still alive. A silence where she can breathe. Because after 50, after all the noise, the failed expectations, the strained small talk, the relationships built, more on performance than presence, what a woman truly craves isn't a man who knows all the right things to say. It's a man who knows how to stay when there's nothing left to say. If you've ever sat beside someone and felt more seen in the quiet than in any conversation, leave a comment below. I once loved someone in the silence, and if you're a woman who has spent years filling every pause, trying to keep a connection alive with effort, feel free to write, I long for a silence that feels like home. Here, in this space, we honor that kind of connection, the kind that breathes, the kind that holds, the kind that doesn't need fixing or filling, just being. If this resonated with you, know you're not alone. And if you'd like to walk with us through more of these quiet truths, we're here. One presence, one pause, one moment at a time. He remembered her hands, long after her voice faded. There are things you forget first, the sound of their laugh, the way they entered a room, even the shape of their favorite mug. But hands. Somehow, you remember hands. That's what stayed. With Thomas. Her name was Lila. They met in their 50s when both had lost someone. Not to tragedy, but to time. Long marriages that wore thin, not from cruelty but distance. They weren't looking for love, just company. What drew him to Lila wasn't her words, but the way she peeled an orange, slow, precise, as if respecting the fruit. Or the way she reached across a table, palm down, inviting presence without pressure. He always noticed her hands. They were weathered but soft, like pages of an old book. She used them to speak when words failed, resting them on his shoulder. When he grew quiet, brushing crumbs from his sweater mid-story, folding them in her lap during thunderstorms. Their relationship was quiet. There were no grand trips or proclamations, but there were hand-packed lunches for Sunday hikes, postcards slipped into jacket pockets, and long walks where their fingers found each other without searching. On Thursday mornings, Lila would bake banana bread and leave a still warm slice on Thomas's porch, wrapped in parchment and twine. Sometimes she wrote a line of poetry on the wrapping, just a phrase, enough to make him pause. Even stones soften with rain. They didn't text. They left each other notes on the kitchen counter, reminders, observations, drawings of birds one of them had spotted on a walk. Thomas once found a sketch of a hummingbird with the words, "You move quietly but beautifully." In the garden, she taught him how to prune roses without harm. He pretended not to know, just to hear her explain again, because her voice was calmest when near soil. And in return, he brought her cuttings from wildflowers he'd found by the roadside. They began ending each week with tea on the porch at dusk. No words, just the rhythm of shared silence, the passing of the teacup, the brushing of knees. Once she reached for his hand and simply said, "We don't have to be extraordinary, just real." It was a slow unfolding thing, built on small kindnesses, and the unshakable belief that time spent without speaking could still be deeply spoken. Together, they stitched a kind of daily love, not loud, but lasting. Thomas remembered the way she used her hands to shape the garden, not just dig, shape. She coaxed things from the dirt. Herbs, yes, but also stories. He'd sit on the porch and watch her fingers pat down soil around basil, like she was tucking in a child. She kept lotion by the bed. Said dry hands made her feel untethered. Every night she offered him a dab, and every night he shook his head. Until one night, months into their quiet bond, he said yes. He held out his palms, a little awkward at first. She smiled, not triumphant, but tender. Her hands, those small, familiar messengers of care, took his in hers. She rubbed the lotion gently across knuckles worn by years of delivering mail and wrenching open old mailboxes in the snow. Her fingers moved in slow, steady circles, as if she were memorizing each ridge and scar. They didn't speak. The silence felt sacred. He watched her face, eyes soft, focused, and something in him, long guarded, began to ease, not because of the lotion, but because of the way she touched him, not with urgency, not with expectation, but with reverence. Later, when he climbed into bed, the faint scent of lavender on his hands followed him into sleep. And that night, for the first time in decades, he dreamed not of distance or endings, but of warmth held gently in the space between two hands. It wasn't romance, it was presence, and for Thomas, that presence was enough to remind him he was still touchable, still seen, still worthy of softness. When she read, she traced the lines with her finger. When she cooked, she tapped the spoon twice before tasting. When she listened, really listened, she folded her hands and leaned in like she was holding your words in her palms. One winter, she caught the flu. Nothing serious at first, but it lingered, turned, and one morning, she didn't wake. The room was still. The tea she'd prepped the night before sat unbrewed. Her glasses rested on the novel they had started together. Thomas didn't cry immediately. He just sat beside her, took her hand, noticed how, even in stillness, it told a story. The funeral was modest. Lila had left instructions. No flowers, just stories. So he told one about the way she fixed his collar before every event, even when it was already straight. The room smiled, then quieted. After the service, a woman approached him holding a folded piece of paper. "She once gave this to me," the woman said, "when I was going through something I didn't think I'd survive." It was a note in Lila's delicate handwriting. "You are more held than you know." He tucked the note into his wallet, carried it there for years. In the days that followed, grief didn't arrive all at once. It came in pauses. In the moment, he reached for a second teacup, or when he looked up expecting to see her in the garden. It came in the quiet that felt too quiet, in the hum of a house that used to echo with her presence. He found her hair clip in the kitchen drawer, her favorite. Scarf still knotted on the coat hook. There were shopping lists in her handwriting, curled slightly at the edges like they were waiting to be resumed. He couldn't throw them away. Sometimes he'd speak to her photo. "You wouldn't believe how the tomatoes turned out." Or, "They finally paved that road you hated." Grief, he learned, wasn't about letting go. It was learning to carry the beauty and the ache in the same breath. And in that breath she remained, not gone, just changed. In the months after, he found her everywhere. In the folded napkin at his favorite diner, in the knitting club sign-up sheet she once pointed at, in the child drawing with chalk on the sidewalk, fingers smeared in color. He couldn't remember her exact voice anymore. But her hands, he could still see them in dreams, hear them even in the sound of pages turning, in the soft clink of teacups. Sometimes he swore he felt her hand brush his when he reached for the salt. It never startled him. It just reminded him he wasn't really alone. Her touch had become part of the rhythm of his days, invisible but insistent. In the attic, sorting through her winter scarves, he came across one she'd knit during their first year together, a soft wool in slate grey. At the end, woven subtly into the hem, he noticed two stitched initials, TL, her quiet signature. He pressed the cloth to his cheek. There were mornings when the sun hit the kitchen counter just right, and the shadows of steam from the kettle reminded him of the way she hovered nearby while tea brewed, always 2 feet away, always in tune, with him. He remembered how her hands would pause mid-chop while cooking, fingertips curled in contemplation, like they were trying to remember a recipe passed down through gesture, not words. Sometimes he found himself mimicking her motions, tracing the rim of his teacup, folding napkins in thirds, patting down the soil with the flat of his palm. Not because he chose to, but because it had become muscle memory, and in those small rituals he knew she was not fading. She had simply slipped into the fabric of his being, present in the way his hands now moved, careful, reverent, like hers once did. Once, while packing up her things, he found a photograph. It wasn't of them, just a close-up of 2 hands, one aged, one young, pressed together across a table. On the back, in her script, "How we hold is how we stay." Thomas framed it, put it on the windowsill where the morning light would hit. He never remarried. Didn't feel lonely. Her absence was real, but her presence was stitched into every small thing. When his niece visited and asked, "Do you miss her?" he nodded and said, "I miss the way she held the world." Have you ever remembered someone by a detail others would miss? Comment below. I remember their hands, because sometimes the smallest gestures leave the deepest imprint. She never asked to be saved. I'd just walked with Clara, wasn't waiting for a rescue. By the time she met Daniel, she had already stitched herself back together more times than she could count. Not neatly, not beautifully, but fully. Her life was a mosaic of things survived. A quiet divorce, years of caregiving, dreams let go of, not out of failure, but choice. Daniel didn't arrive with fireworks. He came with presence, with 2 ears that listened without correcting, 2 hands that stayed still when her voice shook, and a heart that didn't rush to solve her sadness. They met at the dog park on a drizzly Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day when most people stayed home. Clara had a golden retriever named Ollie, who refused to be deterred by the weather. Daniel had a slow, stubborn beagle named Scout, who took his time sniffing everything twice. Their dogs were the first to greet each other, tails wagging like old friends reuniting. Their first conversation was brief, something about the puddles, something about the squirrels, but Clara noticed how Daniel crouched down to untangle the dog's leashes. Patient, calm, no frustration. That kind of quiet patience had become rare to her. She kept showing up. So did he. A pattern emerged. Wednesdays at 9, Saturdays at dusk. Not planned, but reliable. One morning, as Ollie bounded toward Scout, Clara said, "He always chooses the same dog to chase." Daniel laughed. "Maybe he knows loyalty when he sees it." From there, the conversations unfolded like old photo albums, a little out of order, layered with memories. They talked about childhood road trips, about albums that never left their glove. Compartments. About Daniel's mother who had once loved azaleas. About Clara's sister who lived too far away. There was no flirtation. Just attention. Daniel remembered the name of Clara's favorite novel. She noticed he always picked up litter before leaving the park. And slowly, the dog park, once a task on a to-do list, became a place where healing began without either of them realizing it. It was where presence was practiced and where something real began. Not with a spark, but with shared leash tangles and comfortable silences. Clara never asked him to fix her grief, never wanted that. What she wanted, and what Daniel offered, was witness. There was a day early on when Clara broke down mid-sentence while telling a story about her mother's final days. Daniel didn't reach for a tissue or try to finish her thought. He simply stayed still, present, letting the silence stretch between them like a held breath. That night, he sent her a photo, not of her, not of them, but of a stone bench in the park, with a single fallen leaf